Why was everyone laughing at her? That's what she kept asking herself as she stood in the muggy Georgia dawn, one arm pressed tightly to her chest. The training field shimmered with heat, even at 5:30 hours. Rows of recruits stood at attention, 48 of them, straight-backed, rigid, faces hard and disciplined. And then there was her, Emma Mitchell, the one they all called Princess. "Get your scrawny ass back in formation, Mitchell." Drill Sergeant Rodriguez's voice cracked across the air like thunder. The man's boots struck the grass with purpose, every step radiating authority. Emma didn't move, couldn't really. The muscles in her right arm spasmed uncontrollably, a faint tremor running through her forearm. She cradled it, feeling the burn that had never quite healed. "Sergeant," she said softly, "I need medical, my arm." Her voice barely carried over the hum of cicadas. "Your arm," Rodriguez barked. "You mean that thing you keep flapping around to get sympathy?" Laughter erupted behind her. Lance Morrison, tall, broad, all biceps and ego, grinned as he turned toward her. "Got a boo-boo from baby push-ups yesterday," he said, his tone drenched in mock pity. A ripple of chuckles spread down the ranks. Madison Brooks, her blonde ponytail perfect despite the humidity, stage whispered, "Bet she's faking. Doesn't want to sweat like the rest of us." The laughter grew louder, sharper, a pack scenting weakness. Emma's throat tightened. She'd known this would happen eventually. It always did when people saw the tremor. They thought it meant fragility, failure, fear. Rodriguez closed the distance, his breath hot with caffeine and authority. 10 seconds, Mitchell," he growled. 10 seconds to get in formation or get off my field. We don't do weakness here." Her heart pounded. She wanted to explain, to tell him what that tremor really meant. But not yet. Not here. Not until she knew who was watching. She adjusted her stance, favoring her left leg. Her sleeve slid up just enough to reveal a glimpse of dark ink curling around her forearm. A coil. Black. Precise. "Yo," Derek Chen called out, already fumbling for his phone. "Princess got herself a gangster tattoo." Laughter again, but one pair of eyes didn't laugh. Jake Sullivan, a veteran recently returned from deployment, watched her in silence. There was something in her stance, the way she shifted weight, her breathing, deliberate, disciplined, not fear, control. He recognized it from another life. Rodriguez leaned closer. 9. Emma stayed still. 8. The sergeant's voice grew louder, trying to break her silence. 7. The recruits were practically buzzing with anticipation now, waiting for her to crack, to quit. 6. Her sleeve rode up another inch. The dark ink caught the dim light again, something coiled, detailed, alive. 5. Jake's eyes narrowed. He'd seen patterns like that before. 4. The whispers spread through the formation. 3. "Let me escort her off, Sergeant," Lance said eagerly. "Save us the paperwork." Emma's jaw flexed. The tremor in her right arm worsened, not from fear, from restraint. Then a voice cut through the tension. "Sergeant Rodriguez." Captain Morrison, younger, clean uniform, eyes sharp but dismissive, strode from the admin building. "What's going on here?" Rodriguez straightened. "Sir, Private Mitchell refuses to participate in PT, claims injury." Morrison's gaze swept over Emma. He saw only what everyone else did, a fragile girl clinging to excuses. "Do you have a medical waiver?" She shook her head. "Then get back in formation or get off my base," he said, already turning away. The laughter returned, meaner now, emboldened by authority. "If you were watching, you might have thought this was where the story ended, a weak recruit dismissed before she even began. But that's the thing about quiet people. Sometimes they're just listening." Rodriguez's voice thundered again. 0, you're done, Mitchell." He reached for her shoulder. She moved. Not quickly, not violently, just efficiently. A shift of her hips, a step back, the kind of reflex that comes from muscle memory, not panic. His hand missed. The sergeant froze for a split second, thrown off by her precision. Jake noticed it instantly. That wasn't self-defense class stuff. That was trained movement, tactical, purposeful. "Don't you dare evade me," Rodriguez snarled. "Lance, Derek, get her off this field." Lance grinned, cracking his knuckles. "My pleasure, Sergeant." As they stepped toward her, Emma knelt. The crowd went still. She lowered herself into push-up position, left arm bearing most of her weight, right arm tucked protectively close. "Oh, now she wants to work out," Derek jeered, phone raised again. "Too late, princess." Emma said nothing. Her breathing steadied. 1 push-up, 2, 3. Each one was perfect, spine straight, rhythm unbroken. The laughter faltered. "Those don't count," Madison shouted. "She's not even using both arms." Lance stepped closer and placed his boot between her shoulder blades, pressing down. "Let's see how long you last now." Jake's fists clenched. He'd seen cruelty in many forms, but humiliation as entertainment was one of the ugliest. Emma's body shook under the added weight, but she kept moving. 8, 9, 10. Her sleeve slipped further, revealing more of that dark ink, a snake's body coiled in impossible symmetry. Someone whispered, "Is that a snake?" Jake's stomach tightened. He knew that emblem. He'd seen it in a classified briefing overseas, a mark associated with a unit that officially didn't exist. 15 push-ups. Then Marcus Webb, shifting his stance, accidentally kicked her injured arm. Emma collapsed but caught herself with her left hand before hitting the dirt. The tremor in her right hand was violent now, her whole arm spasming. She made no sound, not a curse, not a cry, just silence. Rodriguez's voice came down like a hammer. "Pathetic, can't even do basic exercises. Morrison, Chen, get her out of here." Before they could move, another voice spoke up from the formation, hesitant but firm. "Sergeant," said Elena Rodriguez, a newer recruit, "shouldn't she see medical first if she's really injured?" Rodriguez spun. "Did I ask for your opinion, Private?" Elena fell silent, but her eyes didn't waver. She looked at Emma, and for the first time, someone looked past the weakness. Emma sat up slowly, cradling her arm. The grass clung to her shirt where Lance's boot had pressed. Her dog tags shifted in the light, darker metal, not standard issue. "On your feet, Mitchell," Captain Morrison ordered. "You're done here." She rose, straight-backed, calm. Her gaze found Jake for a heartbeat, and something in his blood went cold. He'd seen that look before in the desert, in men who'd been through too much and survived anyway. They flanked her, Lance on one side, Derek on the other. Phone still recording. She didn't resist, didn't speak. Until Morrison said, "Hold on. Have her run the obstacle course first." Rodriguez frowned. "Sir, she's claiming injury." "Then we'll document it. For the discharge file," Morrison said. But beneath his bureaucratic tone, there was something else, curiosity. "Move out," Rodriguez barked. The recruits marched toward the obstacle course, chatter buzzing. Emma walked between her escorts, calm, scanning her surroundings with the subtlety of someone who'd done it before. Exit points, angles, distances. Jake watched, a knot forming in his chest. Nobody else saw it, but he did. She wasn't moving like a recruit. She was moving like a professional evaluating a threat. In her pocket, her fingers brushed a small injector, a nerve stabilizer, expensive, military grade. She could use it, stop the tremor for a few hours. But not yet. Not unless she had to break cover. The obstacle course stretched before them. Low crawl, wall climb, rope ascent. Designed to break the unprepared. Rodriguez smirked. "Ladies first." Emma looked at the course, her face unreadable. "Move, princess," Lance said. She dropped to her stomach and began crawling under the barbed wire. No hesitation, no wasted motion. Her movements were surgical. Left arm, left leg, coordination perfect even with one side compromised. She cleared the section faster than most healthy recruits. Derek muttered, "Lucky." but his voice didn't sound convinced. Then came the wall, 8 feet of slick wood. Madison laughed again. Let's see her try this one-handed. Emma stepped back 3 paces, then sprinted. Her left hand hit the wall first, momentum carrying her body upward. A twist, a push with her legs, a silent calculation, and she was over. 4 seconds flat. The laughter died. Jake glanced toward Morrison, the captain's brow furrowed. You see that? I see it, Jake said quietly, and I've only ever seen it once overseas. The rope tower loomed, 30 feet high. This ought to be good, Lance said, but his voice lacked conviction now. Emma grasped the rope with her left hand. Then she moved, not climbing like a beginner, but wrapping her legs in a pattern no basic recruit should know. A fast rope method reserved for elite schools. Whispers spread. Jake stared in disbelief. That's Marine fast rope technique. She climbed 20 feet, 25, steady, fluid, precise, her breathing controlled. When she reached the top in 43 seconds, silence fell. No one laughed anymore. She touched the beam, descended carefully, and landed softly. Done, Sergeant, she said. Just that, calm, controlled. Rodriguez's face twisted between anger and disbelief. That was adequate. Sergeant, Captain Morrison interrupted, his voice lower now. A word. The 2 men stepped aside, whispering harshly, eyes turned toward Emma. Madison crossed her arms. So she can climb a rope, big deal, probably learned it in prison. But no one laughed. Jake looked at Emma again. Her breathing hadn't changed, her pulse steady. Combat breathing, the kind you learn when panic means death. Morrison came back, face tight. Mitchell, my office now. As the recruits dispersed, Jake heard him mutter into his radio, run a full background check. Something not adding up. Emma followed silently, her right arm trembling uncontrollably now. But there was a calm beneath it, the calm of someone who'd survived far worse than humiliation. And as the formation whispered behind her, a single thought lingered in the air. Who exactly was Private Emma Mitchell? Because sometimes, the people you mock are the very ones holding your world together, quietly, painfully, and without ever demanding thanks. Why didn't she fight back? That question lingered in every mind as they watched her disappear into the admin building beside Captain Morrison. The morning sun had risen higher now, painting Fort Benning in gold light that didn't quite reach the tension simmering beneath the surface. Emma's steps were steady, but her right hand twitched against her thigh, that quiet tremor that had drawn so much mockery, now seeming like something else entirely. A mark, a warning, maybe even a scar. Morrison walked ahead of her, not speaking. The silence between them felt like a drawn weapon. Inside, the air conditioning hummed. The contrast to the Georgia heat was sharp, sterile. Morrison gestured to a chair. Sit, he said, not unkindly, just cautious. Emma sat. Her eyes stayed on the wall in front of her, blank and waiting, not defiant, not scared, just still. Morrison watched her. He'd dealt with hundreds of recruits, seen the entire spectrum of fear, arrogance, and pride. But this woman didn't fit any pattern. There was no nervous fidgeting, no desperate excuses, just composure, controlled silence. He picked up a file from his desk. Private Emma Mitchell, he began, flipping it open. Ohio native, parents deceased, no siblings, graduated top of her class, clean record, clean medical history. His brow furrowed. Too clean. Emma didn't answer. You're not gonna help me out here, he asked, leaning forward. You understand how this looks. You come into my base pretending to be a recruit. You've got combat-level reflexes, elite technique, a tattoo that looks like something out of a spook story, and you say nothing. Her lips parted slightly, then closed again. The silence stretched. Morrison sighed. I've seen people like you before, special transfers, tests from upper command. They drop someone into watch to evaluate leadership, morale, whatever. But you're not one of those, you're something else. Finally she spoke. "You finished, Captain." Her voice was quiet, controlled. The kind of calm that comes from training where hesitation costs lives. Morrison stiffened. "Excuse me." She met his gaze for the first time. Her brown eyes were steady, flecked with something unreadable, not challenge, not disrespect, but knowledge. "You said I was pretending. I was." He frowned, then explained the performance out there. "I didn't perform," she said. "They did." Morrison sat back. "You've got some attitude for a recruit." "You mistake honesty for attitude," she said softly. Something about the way she said it made his skin prickle. It wasn't arrogance, it was experience. This wasn't a woman bluffing her way through training. This was someone who had seen real operations, real death, and had learned to keep her words as few as possible. He glanced down at her arm, still trembling. "You injured that in basic." Her gaze didn't waver, something like that. Morrison opened a desk drawer, pulling out his tablet. "Let's test something." He typed a few commands. Within seconds, the screen filled with data, personnel records, classified search fields, special operations rosters. He wasn't supposed to have access to everything, but rank had its privileges. He entered her details. The system pinged once, then again, then froze. "Access restricted. Level 7 clearance required." Morrison's chest tightened. He had level 5. That message meant only one thing: her file existed, but far above his clearance. He stared at the screen, then back at her. "Who are you?" Emma didn't flinch. "Just a recruit, sir." The word "sir" sounded less like respect and more like patience. Before he could speak, a knock came at the door. Rodriguez entered, face tight, with Jake Sullivan standing just behind him. "Captain, you wanted to see me?" Rodriguez asked, but his tone was wary. He'd seen the same search screen. He'd seen the frozen clearance prompt. "Close the door," Morrison said. Jake stayed by the wall, watching. His instincts screamed that something was about to unfold, something that wasn't supposed to happen in daylight. Morrison turned the tablet around. "You see that?" he said to Rodriguez. The sergeant squinted. "Access restricted, level 7. He looked at Emma. "What the hell kind of recruit needs level 7 clearance?" Emma's eyes dropped to the floor. For a heartbeat, the tremor in her hand seemed worse. The silence filled with the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint whir of the air vents. Then Rodriguez broke it. "This is ridiculous. She's probably using fake credentials, stolen identity." Jake finally spoke. "You sure about that, Sergeant?" Rodriguez turned. "You got something to add, Sullivan?" Jake's voice was low, steady. "Yeah, you all saw the way she climbed that rope. That was a Marine fast-rope technique, but she's Army. And the tattoo," his gaze drifted toward her sleeve. "I've seen that mark before." Morrison's eyes snapped to him. "Where?" "In Syria," Jake said. 2 years ago, during a joint op gone bad. Rumors said a small team, special reconnaissance off the books, held off a whole insurgent force for 3 days. Only one of them made it out. There were whispers about the survivor, a woman with a tremor, and a tattoo of a coiled snake." Rodriguez scoffed. "Urban legend." Jake shook his head. "I used to think so." Morrison leaned back, his expression shifting from suspicion to something heavier. "Unit 731, he murmured. "The Black Viper Squadron." Rodriguez frowned. "That's a ghost story, classified nonsense." But Morrison wasn't listening. His voice was barely above a whisper. 7 operators, no records, no service medals, no existence. Officially, they never lived. Unofficially, they were the cleanup crew for the cleanup crews, the kind of people you call when every other option fails. Rodriguez snorted. "If that's true, they'd be dead by now." Morrison's gaze hardened. "Most of them are." The silence deepened. Emma said nothing, just sat there, her trembling hand now still against her thigh. Morrison rose. "Show me your arm." Emma's jaw tightened. "That's an order," he said. She didn't move. Rodriguez took a step forward. You heard the captain recruit. Her head turned slightly, eyes narrowing. For the first time her voice carried something sharp. You should step back, Sergeant. Rodriguez hesitated. Something in her tone, calm but absolute, froze him mid-step. Then chaos. The door burst open. Lance Morrison and Derek Chen stumbled in, phones already raised, faces full of the smug confidence of men who thought they were witnessing scandal. "Sorry, sir," Lance said, grinning. "But we had to see this. Gotta catch Princess getting caught." "Get out," Morrison barked. But it was too late. Marcus Webb had followed them, always the loudest of the pack. "Come on, what's she hiding? Let's see that fake tattoo." He reached for her injured arm. He never touched her. 1 second Marcus's hand was outstretched. The next he was on the ground, gasping for air. Emma moved like a ghost, pivot, trap, twist, slam. 3 seconds, that's all it took. Rodriguez's jaw fell open. Lance stumbled backward, dropping his phone, the sound of shattering glass echoing through the small office. Derek froze, camera still rolling, his hand trembling. Emma stood over Marcus, her breathing calm, eyes level. The sleeve of her right arm had ridden up past her elbow. And there it was. Black ink, 7 coils wrapping around her forearm. A snake, mouth open, fangs sunk into a skull. Below it, the numbers 731. For a moment, no one breathed. Morrison's voice came out hoarse. "You're real." Emma straightened, pulling her sleeve back down. "I was." Rodriguez whispered, "Mother of God." The weight of the revelation filled the room like pressure before a storm. Everyone looked at her differently now, not as a fragile recruit, but as something dangerous, something forged in places they could barely imagine. Morrison swallowed hard. "You're Unit 731. Emma nodded once. "Operative designation Ghost 1. Rodriguez stumbled back a step. "That unit doesn't exist." Her eyes flicked to him. "Exactly." Morrison found his voice again. "Then why the hell are you here?" "Because someone on this base betrayed us," she said quietly. 4 operators dead because of intel that came from Fort Benning. I'm not here for training, Captain. I'm here for justice." The words hit like a detonation. Derek, pale and shaking, fumbled to end his recording. "Delete that," Morrison ordered. "Now." He didn't need to be told twice. Rodriguez's mind spun. "You're telling me this whole act, the weakness, the excuses." "Was cover," she said. "They're watching recruits, looking for threats. If I came in strong, they'd disappear. I needed to be invisible." Lance, still pressed against the wall, spoke for the first time. His voice was barely a whisper. "We mocked you." Emma turned to him. "You were supposed to." No anger, no accusation, just weary understanding. Morrison's voice hardened again. "You said there's a traitor on this base. You have proof." "Not yet," she replied, "but I will." Rodriguez stared at her, something between awe and shame etched across his face. "Why didn't you tell us?" Emma's expression softened for the first time, not much, but enough. "Because you needed to believe I was weak. So would he." "He?" Morrison asked. "The one who sold us out," she said. "He's still here, still watching. And if he even suspects I'm operational again, we lose him, and more soldiers die." Outside, the alarm horn wailed once, the signal for a scheduled drill. But to everyone in that room, it sounded like something else. A warning. A clock starting to tick. Morrison met her gaze. "What do you need?" She stood. Her hand trembled again, though her voice did not. "Access to communications, personnel records, and your trust." He nodded slowly. "You'll have it." She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod in return. "Then we don't have much time." As she turned to leave, the sunlight from the office window caught her face, tired, scarred by memory but unbroken. The kind of face that carried ghosts. Jake Sullivan stepped forward quietly. "Ma'am," he said, If you're who I think you are, you saved my unit once. Her eyes met his, recognition flickering for the briefest moment. Tower 4, Syria. He nodded. Her trembling hand steadied just long enough for her to return a crisp salute. Then I guess we're even. And just like that, she was gone, leaving behind 3 stunned soldiers and 1 captain who finally understood that weakness is sometimes the sharpest weapon a warrior can wield. Outside, the recruits whispered as she passed, no longer mocking, no longer laughing, because word travels fast in places like Fort Benning. And somewhere deep inside the base network, a pair of unseen eyes watched her through a surveillance feed. A message was sent to an encrypted server far away. Target 731 confirmed alive. Protocol Theta in motion. The hunt had begun. What did it take to trust a ghost? That was the question burning in Captain Morrison's mind as he watched Emma Mitchell stride across the base, her trembling arm pressed close to her body, her silence commanding more respect than any shouted order. He'd seen soldiers break from fear, from pride, from the weight of command, but never from calm. And she was calm, always, like a storm that had already destroyed everything once and now simply waited for permission to do it again. He followed her to the operations building, where Colonel James Matthews was waiting. A man of 20 years and 1,000 battles, his posture was pure steel. His presence alone could silence a room. "Captain," Matthews said as they entered, "you said you had something urgent." Morrison nodded, sliding a secured tablet across the table. "Sir, I ran a background check on a recruit, Emma Mitchell. It pinged level 7 clearance, then froze." Matthews didn't react outwardly, but Morrison saw it, the subtle tightening of the jaw, the flicker in his eyes. "Where is she?" Matthews asked quietly. "Right here," Morrison said. Emma stepped forward. The tremor in her hand was visible, but she didn't try to hide it. The colonel's eyes locked onto her face, then her arm, and finally the sleeve she kept tugged down. "Show me," he said. She didn't hesitate this time. The sleeve came up slowly, revealing the black coils, the skull, and the number 731. For a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Matthew stared, and then he saluted. It wasn't theatrical. It was quiet, reverent, like honoring a ghost that had come back from the dead. "Operative Mitchell," he said, "I was briefed on 731 when I took command. They told me you were all KIA." Emma returned the salute. "Ghosts are hard to kill, sir." Rodriguez, standing near the door, looked like his brain was still trying to catch up. "Colonel, sir, she's just a—" "Enough, Sergeant," Matthews said, his voice cutting through the room like a scalpel. "You've been disrespecting one of the most decorated operators this country's ever produced. And if you think that tattoo is for show, you have no idea what kind of blood it represents." The room fell silent. Matthews motioned to the others. "Clear the room, everyone out except Mitchell." Rodriguez hesitated. "Sir, I—" "Now, Sergeant." As the door shut behind them, the hum of the secure room activated. Encryption field, white noise generator, no signals in or out. Matthews turned back to Emma. "Tell me everything." She moved to the operations map on the wall. It showed the base Fort Benning in perfect military precision, but her eyes saw something else. "Syria, 2019, dust storms, screams." 3 years ago," she began quietly, "Operation Venom Strike was compromised. We were sent in to eliminate a high-value target coordinating attacks against U.S. forces. 5 operators. We had perfect intel. Too perfect." Her fingers traced the terrain on the map, as if muscle memory itself was replaying the horror. "It was an ambush. They knew our exact route, our entry time, even our call signs." Matthews's jaw set. "You're saying the leak came from inside?" "It had to," Emma said. "And one of the last things I heard while they were trying to extract information was a voice. American. said their source was still active at the schoolhouse. Matthews frowned. That's slang for this place, Fort Benning. Emma nodded. Only someone with training would use that word. For a moment, neither spoke. The weight of betrayal hung heavy in the room. Morrison's voice finally broke the silence. How long have you been tracking them? 3 years, Emma said. I followed trails through safe houses, shell corporations, encrypted accounts. Every lead led back here. Matthews exhaled. Why not come to command? You could have. Gone through official channels, she interrupted softly. I tried. 731 was declared dead to protect ongoing operations. Every door I knocked on either shut or watched me too closely. So I went dark, built a new identity, waited for the right moment. Her trembling hand reached into her pocket, pulling out a small data drive. Everything I've gathered, metadata, communication patterns, anomalies in transfer records. 5 names keep repeating in correlation with known enemy channels. Morrison plugged it into the tablet. The screen flickered, then filled with names and data logs, message timestamps, red lines connecting them like veins in a diseased heart. Jesus, Morrison whispered, all on this base. Emma nodded. One of them sold out my unit, the others helped cover it up. Matthews leaned forward. You know which one? Not yet, she said, but I can narrow it down. Her eyes drifted to the list again. Maintenance Sergeant Davis. He's been here the longest, has access to every building, every system. Rodriguez's name flashed across one of the peripheral logs, but Emma ignored it. He's careful, but everyone slips eventually. Matthews nodded slowly. All right, we'll need surveillance, quiet investigation, maybe a... No, she interrupted. We can't move that slow. He's already twitching. The moment he senses heat, he'll vanish. We need to force him to make contact with his handler. Morrison frowned. How? Emma looked at him, calm but intense. By letting him think he succeeded. We leak that I've been discovered and am being processed for discharge. He'll want to confirm it himself, maybe even watch. That's when he'll slip. Matthews's lips tightened. You're baiting him. Emma's faint smile didn't reach her eyes. I've been bait for 3 years, sir. What's one more day? Morrison hesitated. You're risking your life on a guess. It's not a guess, she said, voice flat. It's pattern recognition. Matthews studied her, the tremor, the calm, the way her words carried conviction without emotion. It wasn't recklessness. It was the quiet certainty of someone who'd already accepted death once. Very well, he said. You'll have what you need, but this stays between us. Understood? Yes, sir. He turned to Morrison. Get base security to start a silent lockdown protocol. No one leaves without my authorization. Morrison nodded and left the room, jaw set with determination. Emma watched him go, then said quietly, he's a good officer. Matthews looked at her, and you can tell that from what? 2 hours. From how he listens, she said. Most men in uniform here, few listen. A silence stretched between them. Then Matthews asked the question that had been lingering since she walked in. Why come back here, Mitchell? Why not disappear like the others? She looked up at him, eyes haunted but steady. Because I failed them. 4 operators died because I couldn't stop the leak. I promised their families I'd find who did it. Matthews's gaze softened. You did everything you could. Her lips twitched, something between a smile and pain. That's what people say when they don't understand what everything means. The tremor in her right hand grew stronger. She clenched her fist, trying to still it. Matthews saw it and said nothing. The silence in the room was thick enough to feel. Then the base intercom crackled. Security alert. East Gate clearance granted to Maintenance Sergeant Davis. Matthews frowned. That's not possible. The base is on internal lockdown. Emma's eyes snapped to the monitor feed on the wall. A silver pickup truck was pulling through the gate. Her voice turned cold. He's running. Matthews grabbed his radio. Security locked down the perimeter. Stop that truck. The reply came through static. Negative, sir. Sergeant Davis said it was a family emergency. His credentials cleared. Emma was already moving. He knows someone tipped him. Who? She looked at him, her tone grim. Does it matter? They moved fast down the hall, out into the blinding sun. The motor pool roared to life as alarms echoed across the base, but Davis was already gone. Morrison caught up breathless. He took the east access road, that gate supposed to be locked. Then he's not alone, Emma said. He's meeting someone. Matthews barked into his radio. Mobilize pursuit units, full lockdown. But Emma shook her head. Too slow. By the time they mobilize, he'll be gone. I need one vehicle, one driver who knows the terrain. I'll go, Morrison said immediately. She turned to him. You don't know the woods outside the perimeter. Another voice spoke up, hesitant, almost guilty. I do. Lance Morrison, still shaken from earlier, stepped forward. I grew up here. My dad was stationed at Bennying 15 years. I know every dirt trail, every deer path. Emma studied him for a long moment. You sure you want to fix the mess you helped make? He swallowed hard. I'm sure. She nodded once. Get your truck. We leave in 60 seconds. Matthews caught her arm as she turned to go. Mitchell, bring him back alive if you can, but if it's between you and him. She finished for him. There won't be a choice, sir. Her hand trembled again, but her eyes were steady as stone. As she disappeared into the sunlight, Matthews stared after her. The legend of Unit 731 had always seemed like myth, a whisper of the kind of soldiers who operated in the dark so others could live in the light. But seeing her now, limping slightly, trembling, yet utterly composed, he realized the truth. Legends weren't born from power, they were born from pain. In the distance, engines roared. Emma climbed into the passenger seat of Lance's truck, checking her weapon with practiced precision. Do you even have authorization to carry that? He asked. Ghost privileges, she said. The words sent a chill through him. As they tore down the access road, dust billowing behind them, Lance risked a glance at her trembling hand. Does it ever stop? He asked. She didn't look at him. The tremor? No, you just learn to time your breathing between the shakes. Lance frowned. How do you live like that? Her eyes stayed on the horizon. You don't, you endure. The road twisted into dense woods, tire tracks fresh. The chase had begun. Back at the base, Matthews stood before the glowing screens of the command room, watching two blinking dots move farther from Fort Bennying. One labeled Morrison truck, the other Davis pickup. Rodriguez approached quietly, face pale. Sir, do you think she'll make it? Matthews didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the map, following the moving dots, remembering the stories whispered in classified halls about the woman with the trembling hand who never missed. Finally, he spoke. She already did once, he said. Let's hope she does again. Outside, the last sound that echoed across Fort Bennying before the signal faded into the forest was the roar of an engine, and the beginning of a reckoning 3 years in the making. Because ghosts don't chase for glory, they chase for justice. And tonight, justice was on the move. Why was the forest so quiet? That was the first thing Lance Morrison noticed as his truck thundered down the narrow dirt path that cut through the Chattahoochee woods. It was as if the trees themselves were holding their breath, watching. The gravel spat from the tires, the suspension jolted with every rut, but Emma sat still beside him, eyes locked on the road ahead, her left hand steady on her weapon, her right trembling just enough to betray the effort it took to keep control. The sun was just cresting the tree line. Shafts of light pierced through the canopy in brief flashes, gilding her profile. She looked like a statue carved out of resolve and pain. He's heading north, Lance said, scanning the GPS tracker on the dash. That fire road cuts through to the old ranger station, been abandoned for years. Her voice was calm, almost detached. That's where he's meeting his handler. Lance shot her a look. You sure? Pattern analysis, she replied. 3 drop locations, all remote, all with satellite uplink. That's the only one close enough for a fast extraction. Her tone was matter-of-fact, but Lance heard something underneath fatigue. Not physical, but spiritual. The exhaustion of someone who's been chasing ghosts for too long. He pushed the truck harder. The engine whined. You ever stop to think maybe this isn't worth it, that some ghost should stay dead? Emma turned her head, her eyes finding his. You ever watch men die because someone decided their life was expendable? He said nothing. Then you don't get to ask me that, she said softly. The road narrowed. Branches clawed at the sides of the truck. Her hand moved to the dashboard, bracing against the vibrations. Lance noticed how her fingers trembled, but her eyes never flinched. How bad's your arm? He asked. It shakes, she said simply, but I can still pull a trigger. He almost smiled, comforting. They skidded around a sharp curve. Tire tracks fresh, she pointed. He turned here. Lance slowed, tires crunching over the gravel as they veered onto a smaller path, half swallowed by undergrowth. Through the trees, an old wooden structure appeared, the ranger station, slouched and decaying, its roof half collapsed, windows boarded with warped planks. The silver pickup sat out front, engine still idling. Beside it, a black SUV with tinted windows. Lance exhaled. He's not alone. No, Emma said, eyes narrowing. He brought his handler, that's the handoff. Her voice had gone distant, professional. Every ounce of softness gone, replaced by the cold rhythm of mission focus. The ghost had taken over. Wait for backup, Lance asked, already knowing the answer. She checked her magazine, chambered around, her left hand smooth, practiced. No time. You're not going in alone, he said, drawing his Glock from the glove box. You ever been in a firefight, Morrison? She asked quietly. He hesitated. No. Then follow my lead and don't die. Your death would create too much paperwork. Despite the grim tension, a smirk tugged at the edge of her mouth, fleeting, human. Then it was gone. They slipped out of the truck. The air was thick with the smell of pine and gasoline. Every sound, the creak of a tree branch, the buzz of insects, seemed amplified. Emma crouched, scanning the area. 2 voices inside the building. Male, calm, one of them Davis's, the other unfamiliar, smooth, foreign accent, deliberate cadence. Intelligence operative, professional. She held up 2 fingers to Lance, then pointed to herself and the front door, then him and the back. He nodded, understanding. His heart was pounding so loud he was sure they'd hear it from inside. Emma counted down with her fingers. 3, 2, 1. She hit the front door like a whisper of violence, weapon raised, movement economical. Don't move. Inside, Davis and the stranger looked up from a table littered with cash, hard drives, and a half-open laptop. For one suspended second, no one breathed. Then the man in the suit flipped the table toward her, sending a rain of metal and paper into the air. Emma sidestepped, firing once, twice. The first round buried itself in the wall, the second grazed the man's shoulder. Davis dove for a weapon, shouting something Emma couldn't make out. Her right hand spasmed, the tremor worsening. She switched grip, using both hands to steady the aim. Davis was raising his gun. A single shot cracked from behind him. Davis's body jerked, staggered, then fell forward, weapon clattering to the ground. Lance stood in the back doorway, Glock smoking, eyes wide with shock. For a moment, everything stopped. The handler lunged for the window, blood streaming down his arm. Emma pivoted, firing 2 precise rounds center mass. The man crashed through the glass, landed outside, unmoving. The silence that followed was deafening. Clear, Emma called softly, sweeping the room. She approached the handler, checking the pulse. Nothing. The man's eyes were still open, staring into nothing. His suit was expensive, his watch foreign, his death clinical. Lance lowered his weapon slowly, still shaking. I just killed a man. Emma looked at him, eyes calm. You saved my life. Davis would have shot me first. My tremor, I couldn't have beaten him to it. He looked down at Davis's body, the man's uniform soaked dark with blood. He said he had kids. I saw pictures once on his desk. Emma crouched beside the dying sergeant, applying pressure to the wound that couldn't be saved. He made his choices. We all do. Davis coughed, crimson bubbling from his lips. You're 731, he gasped. Thought you were dead. I'm hard to kill, she said. His eyes rolled, focusing on her weakly. You don't understand. They said military needed cleansing. Corruption, control, I thought. His voice trailed off, gurgled, then stilled. Emma stayed crouched a moment longer, watching his life fade, not with triumph, but with something closer to grief. Then she stood. He was trying to justify it. Lance swallowed, and there's always a justification, she said softly. That's how betrayal hides, behind the word necessary. Outside, the faint echo of sirens grew louder. Back up, too late as always. Emma began scanning the table. Help me collect the data before they get here. Lance blinked. Shouldn't we secure the scene? We will, she said, sliding the laptop toward her and pulling a small thumb drive from her pocket. After I copy what matters. Her fingers flew across the keys. Her right hand trembled violently, but her left compensated with precision that bordered on mechanical. These files, operational schedules, personnel rosters, encrypted transfers. Look at this, she pointed to a list. 3 more special operations units scheduled for deployment in the next 6 months, all in the same region where my team was ambushed. They were planning more attacks, Lance murmured. Emma nodded. They were using Fort Benning as a relay point. Davis was the inside man. The door burst open behind them. Colonel Matthews entered, flanked by a security detail and Captain Morrison, weapons raised. Status: 2 hostiles down, Emma reported. We've recovered evidence linking this base to an infiltration network. Recommend immediate counterintel relay to command. Matthews took in the scene: Davis's body, the dead handler, the shattered glass, the laptop humming faintly. Understood. He turned to his men. Secure the area. As they began photographing the scene, Morrison approached Emma. You did good, he said quietly. She didn't look at him. Good doesn't bring them back. Lance leaned against the wall, pale, still processing. Matthews noticed. Son, you all right? Lance nodded shakily. First time I ever fired a weapon outside a range. Matthews's gaze softened. Then you remember this, Morrison. You pulled the trigger to save a life. That's the line. Don't ever forget where it is. He looked at Emma. And you, what now? Emma ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber, holstered the weapon. Now we find the rest. Matthews frowned. You've already done more than enough. Her eyes flicked toward the bodies. Until there are no more like them, it's never enough. He nodded slowly, understanding. I'll see to it command gets your data. She handed him the drive she'd extracted from the laptop. It's encrypted under my old key. Only level 7 clearance can open it. Matthews raised an eyebrow. That includes you. Her mouth twitched faintly. Ghost privileges. As the room filled with the controlled chaos of an official investigation, Emma drifted to a corner, looking out through the broken window. The forest stretched endlessly beyond, green and silent. The tremor in her right hand worsened now that the adrenaline was fatting. She cradled it against her chest, the old pain singing through her nerves. Lance stepped up beside her. You okay? She didn't answer immediately. Then quietly, pain's just information. I've learned to read it. He looked at her, still unable to reconcile the trembling woman before him with the lethal precision he'd witnessed minutes ago. You could have let someone else handle this." "I did," she said, "3 years ago, and they died." Her voice cracked for the first time, barely but enough. He looked down, shame flickering in his eyes. "I'm sorry for how I treated you." "You did exactly what I needed you to," she said, still watching the tree line. "You made them believe I didn't matter. That's how the traitor stayed close." "Still," he said, "I shouldn't have been the kind of man who needed to be taught that way." She turned to him. "Then don't be again." The sound of vehicles filled the clearing, black SUVs, unmarked. Intelligence division. They moved like shadows, already sealing off the perimeter. Matthews approached. "Mitchell, command's been notified. Counterintel is en route. They'll take it from here." She nodded. "Then my part's done." Morrison frowned. "What happens to you now?" She gave a small, tired smile. "Ghosts fade until they're needed again." Matthews studied her, the trembling arm, the calm voice, the shadow of loss that followed every movement. "You could stay," he said quietly. "Train our people. Teach them what strength really looks like." She shook her head. "That's not who I am. I'm not a teacher. I'm a hunter." And with that, she walked out into the dawn, where the light hit her face and turned the fatigue into something almost holy, a portrait of endurance. Behind her, Lance stood in the doorway, watching her go. The woman he had mocked for weakness had just saved his life, his base, and countless others, and she carried it all with the same quiet grace she'd carried her pain. He whispered, mostly to himself, "Guess ghosts are real after all." Emma paused without turning back, only when people forget to look for them. Then she disappeared into the trees. Back at Fort Benning, reports would soon circulate. Files would be written. Commendations would be drafted and never signed. Officially, none of it would exist. Unofficially, every soul who'd been there would remember the day they met a ghost. And in the quiet that followed, when the sirens faded and the world went still, a simple truth lingered, the kind that military manuals never capture. Sometimes the strongest warriors aren't the ones who roar. They're the ones who tremble and keep moving anyway. Why did the base feel different now? The morning after the operation, Fort Benning woke under a sky that didn't look the same. The light was soft, muted, as if the world itself had witnessed what had happened in those woods and decided to move a little slower, speak a little quieter. Recruits still marched, orders were still shouted. The rhythm of military life carried on, pretending nothing had changed. But everyone knew. Every whisper in the mess hall, every look over the shoulder, every half salute, half stare toward the empty bunk at the end of the row, hers. Emma Mitchell, the woman they'd mocked, dismissed, pitied. Now the name felt heavy when spoken, like something sacred or dangerous. Lance sat alone at the far end of the cafeteria, his tray untouched. The smell of eggs and burned coffee filled the air, but he couldn't taste or smell any of it. All he could hear was the echo of that gunshot in the ranger station, the way Davis's body had folded, the way Emma hadn't flinched. He looked down at his hands. They were still trembling slightly, not from fear, from memory. He'd never forget the calm in her eyes as the world around her fell apart. That kind of strength wasn't loud. It was built from the bones of everything it had lost. Across the hall, Derek and Marcus sat in silence. The loudmouths, the ones who had led the teasing, the ones who had laughed when Emma struggled on the obstacle course, when her hand shook so hard she dropped her water canteen. Now they couldn't even meet each other's eyes. "She saved us," Marcus said finally, voice barely above a whisper. Derek nodded slowly. "She saved all of us." "Yeah," Marcus's throat tightened, "and we made her life hell." The guilt was a living thing now, coiled around them. It didn't need punishment, it was punishment. At the far table, Jake Sullivan sat quietly, polishing a pair of boots that weren't his. Emma's boots. He'd found them outside the barracks, left neatly side by side. The laces were still tied, the leather dusted with Georgia clay. He didn't know why he picked them up. Maybe because it felt wrong leaving them there, like leaving a flag untended. Captain Morrison entered the mess hall, eyes sweeping the room. Every soldier sat a little straighter. His presence carried the weight of authority, but today it carried something else too, respect, earned the hard way. He walked to Jake's table, glanced at the boots. "She leave those for you." Jake shook his head. "No, sir, I think she left them for all of us." Morrison nodded once, the kind of nod that said everything words couldn't. "Command classified the entire operation last night," he said quietly. "Official report says Davis died in an equipment accident. The rest doesn't exist," Jake finished. "Exactly." Jake frowned. "So she's gone just like that." Morrison looked toward the window where the sunlight hit the parade ground. "Ghosts don't stay where they're remembered. They move on." Jake's jaw tightened. "She deserves better than being erased." "She didn't do it for recognition," Morrison said. "She did it so no one else had to live the way she did." He paused, then added almost to himself, "And maybe, so we'd all start looking at people differently." The base PA system crackled, a distant voice calling squads for training. Routine was reasserting itself, swallowing truth like it always did. But beneath that rhythm, something subtle had changed. In the gym, recruits ran their laps a little harder. In the barracks, arguments stopped faster. In the firing range, hesitation meant reflection instead of ridicule. The woman with the trembling hand had left behind something stronger than orders, perspective. Later that afternoon, Colonel Matthews stood in his office, reading a message on his encrypted terminal. Subject: Operation Venom closure classified, debrief successful. Operative Ghost 1, status disengaged. He leaned back, sighing. For years, he'd seen men die in the name of the flag, the mission, the cause. But what haunted him most were the ones who survived, the ones who carried silence like a wound. Emma Mitchell had survived, but survival wasn't the same as living. His intercom buzzed. "Sir," the adjutant said, "Private Morrison's here to see you." "Send him in." Lance entered, posture crisp, eyes uncertain. He saluted. "At ease," Matthews said. "What can I do for you, son?" Lance hesitated, then said, "Sir, I just wanted to thank you for letting her handle it." Matthews studied him. "You mean Mitchell?" "Yes, sir, she changed something in me, in all of us." The colonel nodded slowly. "Change is good, as long as you hold on to it." "I will," Lance said quietly. "Sir, if it's okay, I'd like to request transfer special operations training." Matthews raised an eyebrow. "You think you're ready for that?" "No, sir," Lance said honestly. "But I want to be. I want to be the kind of soldier she was." Matthews looked at him for a long moment. "Then start by being the kind of man she needed around her when everyone else failed. Integrity doesn't start on the battlefield." Lance nodded. "Understood, sir." As he left, Matthews turned back to the message on his screen. His reflection looked older somehow, tired. But beneath that weariness was pride, not the loud, flag-waving kind, but the quiet pride of knowing a legend had passed through his command and left it cleaner than she found it. That night, rain began to fall, steady, cleansing. It pattered against the barracks roofs, dripped off the edges of the flagpole, ran in small rivers through the gravel paths. In one of the empty storage rooms, Jake Sullivan sat with the old radio equipment, tuning through static. His hand brushed against a frequency band he hadn't used in years, long wave, encrypted, military only. A faint crackle came through, then a voice. "Soft, steady, female. Ghost 1 to Tower 4 reading you." Jake froze, his throat went dry. "Tower 4 here," he said softly. "Is that really you?" Silence then. "You still keeping your men alive, Sergeant?" He laughed, a sound halfway between disbelief and relief. "Trying to, ma'am." "Good," she said. "Then you're doing better than most." He swallowed hard. "Where are you?" "Off the grid," she replied. Where ghosts belong. He hesitated. They still talk about you, you know, you changed them. Another long pause, then her voice quiet but firm. Then maybe they'll never need another me. Static swallowed the frequency. He tried calling again, but the channel was dead. Jake sat there for a long time, staring at the radio, listening to the hum of the rain against the tin roof. He smiled faintly. "Fair winds, Ghost One," he murmured. "Fair winds." A week passed. The investigation wrapped. Davis's family received a letter sanitized, polished, full of words that meant nothing. The kind the military writes when truth isn't allowed to breathe. But somewhere beyond the official narrative, truth was alive and walking. Alone, quiet, unseen. Emma Mitchell drove a government-issued Jeep down a two-lane highway in Alabama, window cracked, rain misting in through the gap. The forest blurred past in streaks of green and gray. Her arms still trembled, but less now, as if the shaking had finally found rhythm with her heartbeat. She reached up to touch the snake tattoo beneath her sleeve. The coils felt cold under her fingers. "You can rest now," she whispered to the memory of the fallen. "I did what I promised." But she didn't feel peace. Just a vast, hollow quiet, the kind that follows justice, not triumph. A small diner appeared at the side of the road. She pulled over, parked, and stepped out. Inside, the smell of coffee and bacon filled the air. She sat at the counter, ordered nothing, just stared out the window at the highway stretching endlessly forward. The waitress, a kind-eyed woman in her 50s, smiled. "Long drive." Emma nodded. "Long everything." "You military?" Emma paused. "Used to be." The woman chuckled softly. "Ain't no such thing as used to be. That uniform never leaves your bones." Emma smiled faintly. "Yeah, guess not." The waitress poured her a cup of coffee. "On the house, sweetheart. You look like someone who's earned it." Emma stared at the steam curling from the cup, rising and vanishing, a perfect metaphor for everything she'd lived through. She took a sip, the bitterness grounding her. A man 2 stools down was reading a newspaper. The headline caught her eye. "Fort Benning announces security reforms after internal breach." She smiled to herself, so they were learning, slowly, painfully. Outside, the rain stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds. It spilled across the diner window, warming her face. She whispered, mostly to herself, "Guess even ghosts need daylight sometimes." The waitress looked up. "What was that, honey?" Emma shook her head. "Nothing, just thinking out loud." She finished her coffee, paid, and stepped outside. The world smelled clean, alive again. She looked down the road, hand steadying briefly against the Jeep door. Her next mission wasn't written yet. Maybe it wouldn't be. Maybe this was enough. As she started the engine, the radio flickered. A coded transmission on an encrypted channel she hadn't used since before the ambush. 3 beeps, pause. Then, "Ghost One, stand by for coordinates." She closed her eyes. For a heartbeat, she considered turning it off, disappearing, finally resting. Then she whispered, "Copy that, standing by." The tires crunched on wet gravel as she drove off into the horizon, the rain returning behind her like a curtain closing over the past. And somewhere in the quiet halls of Fort Benning, men and women trained a little harder, listened a little closer, respected a little more because of her. Not because she'd saved them, but because she'd shown them that dignity doesn't always roar. Sometimes it trembles and still acts. Why did she answer the call? That question echoed in Emma's mind as the Jeep cut through the Mississippi backroads, sunlight filtering through the canopy in fractured bursts. The encrypted signal had come an hour ago. No signature, no command chain, just a simple message burned into her dashboard display. "Ghost One, immediate redeployment, eyes only." For a woman who was supposed to be dead, the military had a strange way of finding her. She hadn't slept much since the Fort Benning operation. The ghosts had grown quieter, yes, but never silent. She could still see Davis's eyes when he realized who she was, still feel the tremor in her right hand every time the quiet returned. Some wounds don't bleed, they hum. And now something inside her, duty, guilt, maybe habit, was answering that hum again. The coordinates led her to an airstrip hidden beneath forest cover, old hangars standing like tired sentinels. A single transport plane waited, engines idling. Two soldiers in black tactical gear greeted her without words. "Name," one asked. "Ghost 1, she said flatly. He checked a manifest, then nodded. "You're late." "I wasn't invited," she replied. They didn't smile. Professionals never did. She climbed aboard. The interior was dimly lit, a cold hum filling the cabin. No markings, no insignia, just metal, silence, and purpose. Halfway through the flight, a voice came from behind her. Male, calm, familiar. "Told you ghosts can't stay buried." Emma turned slowly. Her breath caught. The man leaning against the bulkhead wore the same black uniform she once had. His hair was shorter now, streaked with gray. A scar ran down the side of his neck, disappearing under the collar. "Cole," she whispered. "Captain Nathan Cole." Her former team lead. Unit 730, one's commander. Killed in Syria. Or so she'd believed. "You're supposed to be dead," she said. He smirked faintly. "Guess we're both bad at dying." Her jaw tightened. Why the deception? Cole shrugged. "Operational necessity. After Venom's strike went sideways, Command pulled me out under a different ID, deep cover. You weren't supposed to make it either, but you did." His tone shifted, softer but sharp. "You made a lot of noise at Bennying Mitchell." She met his gaze without flinching. "I found the leak." "I know," he said. "And now the people behind that leak are nervous. You stirred the hive." Emma crossed her arms. "So this recall isn't about closure." "Nothing ever is," Cole said. "Command wants you for a recon op, off the books again." Her stomach knotted. "Where?" He slid a dossier across the table, bolted to the floor. A satellite image, desert terrain, sparse structures, coordinates marked in red. Emma's eyes narrowed. "That's northern Syria." Cole nodded. "Same region where 731 went dark." Her pulse quickened. "Why go back?" "Because something resurfaced there," he said. "An arms network using leftover U.S. tech. Intel suggests it's tied to the same group that ambushed us 3 years ago." "And you think I'll just volunteer for a second round?" she asked. Cole leaned closer. "You don't have to volunteer. You already did the moment you plugged that data drive into Command's network. They know who you are now. You're visible again. They'll come for you whether you're in or not." Emma looked away, jaw clenched. "They could have left me buried." He smiled, not kindly. "You're too valuable to bury." The engines roared as the plane began to descend. Outside, the horizon blazed with evening light. Cole straightened. "Welcome back to the world, Ghost 1." They landed at a covert base outside Erbil. The desert air hit her like fire, dry, metallic, familiar. Soldiers moved in purposeful silence, faces covered, names replaced by code names and numbers. Cole led her through a narrow hallway into a dim briefing room. The hum of projectors filled the air. A man stood at the head of the table, older, polished, the kind of face that had seen too many classified reports and not enough daylight. "Mitchell," he said, "I'm Director Lang. You've been a ghost long enough." She didn't salute. "You dragged me back." He smiled thinly. "You found something at Bennying that was never meant to be found. Now we need you to help clean the rest." "By clean you mean kill?" she asked. "By prevent," Lang corrected. "A rogue cell is trying to weaponize intel they stole from 731's archives. They're recreating what you and Cole did without oversight." Her brow furrowed. "They're building another unit." Lang nodded. "Shadow Ops contracted, off books. We need to intercept before they launch." Cole interjected. We're calling it Operation Viper's Echo. The name hit her like a punch. Viper's Echo, she repeated. You're nomming it after us. Lang's gaze was cool. We're honoring what worked. Emma's voice hardened. What broke? Silence. Lang folded his hands. You have a choice, Mitchell. Sit this out and watch someone else take the mission, someone who doesn't understand what it cost, or lead it and make sure no one repeats your ghosts. She stared at him. Who's the team? Cole tapped a tablet. 4 dossiers appeared on the wall, young operatives, each one efficient on paper, untested in soul. They don't know who you are, Cole said. Officially, you're just an advisor. Emma's eyes flicked through their files, faces too clean, eyes too eager. Kids. Lang watched her closely. We deploy in 48 hours. She didn't answer, just stared at the glowing screen until the images blurred. Finally, she said, if I do this, it's my way. Lang smiled faintly. Of course, that's why we called a ghost. That night the desert wind sang through the hangars, carrying with it the scent of sand and memory. Emma sat outside her quarters, polishing the sidearm they'd issued her. She hadn't used a standard weapon in years. The metal felt foreign, impersonal. Cole approached quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. Still black? He asked. She nodded, still bitter. He handed her one and sat beside her. For a moment, they drank in silence, watching the horizon fade into night. You ever think we're cursed? He asked softly. Only on quiet nights, she said. He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You were always the conscience of the team. The rest of us just followed orders. You questioned them. I should have questioned louder, she said. Cole looked at her, guilt flickering beneath his composed exterior. You think I don't carry them too? Their names, their screams. She said nothing. He continued. I've seen what happens when soldiers forget why they fight. They turn into machines, efficient, hollow. That's what Lang's building now. Another ghost unit, but without the humanity that made ours dangerous. Emma glanced at him. Then why help him? Cole exhaled. Because if I don't, someone worse will. The wind picked up, tugging at the edges of their conversation. Do you trust him? She asked. Lang, Cole gave a small, bitter smile. I trust his ambition. Emma's gaze dropped to the sand shifting beneath her boots. That's not the same as trusting a man. No, Cole said quietly, but sometimes it's enough to predict him. They fell silent again. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of a helicopter lifted into the night, a mechanical heart beating in the dark. Emma finally asked, what really happened after Venom's strike? Cole's expression hardened. You already know. Not all of it, she said. I know there was a leak, I know we were set up, but why? What were we really there for? He hesitated, a fraction too long. Cole, she pressed, what did Command want that day? He stared into the desert, jaw tight. It wasn't about the target. It was about the tech, prototype surveillance AI, US made. They wanted to erase it before the public found out we were testing it on civilians. Someone decided that wasn't patriotic enough. Emma's stomach turned. So they let us die to protect a lie. Cole didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence said enough. She stood, the tremor in her right hand returning like a heartbeat. If we're going back there, I'm not doing it for Command. I'm doing it for them, for the ones who never came home. He nodded slowly. Then we're on the same side. For now, she said. He smiled faintly, always the optimist. She looked toward the stars, faint, distant, unblinking. No, Cole, just realistic. The next morning, the new recruits arrived in the hangar. Young, eager faces, eyes sharp, smiles forced. They stood at attention as Emma walked past them, her black ops uniform stripped of insignia, her sleeves rolled down to hide the tattoo. Cole did the introductions. This is your advisor, Coulson Ghost. None of them recognized her. Not yet, but they would. Emma's voice was calm but cutting as she spoke. You've all read manuals. You've all passed tests. Forget them. Out there, the manual won't save you. Your conscience will. If you ignore it once, you won't hear it again. They exchanged uncertain glances. One recruit, barely 20, raised a hand. "Ma'am, why do they call you Ghost?" Emma met his gaze. "Because everyone I worked with once did the same thing you're doing now, asking questions they weren't ready for the answers to." Her tone wasn't cruel, just honest, the kind of honesty forged from scars. Cole watched her from the side, a faint pride in his eyes. He leaned toward Lang as the director observed from the upper walkway. "You wanted a weapon. You got a conscience instead." Lang didn't look away from her. "Let's hope it doesn't get in the way." Cole smirked. "It's the only thing keeping her dangerous." Lang said nothing, but his gaze lingered on Emma longer than it should have, the gaze of a man calculating risk and value at once. And as the recruits filed out, Cole turned to her. "You ready for round two?" She holstered her weapon. "No one ever is." The hangar doors opened, flooding the room with sunlight. The desert shimmered beyond, vast and endless, a perfect mirror for the road she'd been trying to leave behind. Emma stepped into it anyway. Because ghosts don't chase peace. They chase what's left unfinished. Why did the air feel wrong? That was Emma's first thought as the helicopter skimmed low over the Syrian desert, its rotors slicing through heat and silence. Sand blurred beneath them, a shifting ocean of gold and dust. Her team sat across from her, helmets on, eyes hidden behind black lenses. The hum of the bird was constant, deafening, but inside her chest, nothing. Just that hollow, waiting quiet. Operation Viper's Echo. The mission name still sat like grit on her tongue. The objective was simple on paper. Infiltrate a suspected weapons depot in the ruins outside Deir ez-Zor, confirm the presence of stolen U.S. tech, and extract data before demolition. Simple on paper. But Emma had been in this world too long to believe in simplicity. Cole sat beside her, studying the mission tablet in silence. His posture was relaxed, but she could see the calculation behind his stillness. The same way he used to analyze every battlefield, every heartbeat before it broke. Across from them, the four recruits fidgeted in their gear. Young, fresh, hungry for purpose. Emma scanned them one by one. Ramos Communications, fast with a keyboard, slower with judgment. Kira Demolitions, too confident, masking fear with swagger. Dane, ex-ranger, tactical lead, the kind of man who needed a reason to fight or he'd invent one. And Voss, sniper, quiet, distant, eyes that never blinked too long. There was something about Voss that unsettled her. Not wrong, just unreadable. Cole caught her glance, followed it. He said nothing, but she saw the flicker of agreement. The pilot's voice came over comms. 3 minutes to drop. We're clear so far. Emma nodded to Cole. No such thing as clear. He smiled faintly, still the pessimist. "I'm still alive," she said. He didn't argue. The desert stretched endless beneath them, dunes giving way to the skeletons of war. Twisted metal, burned-out trucks, shattered concrete. The ghosts of old battles never left this place. They just changed names. The chopper dropped into a hover. The team fast-roped down, boots sinking into sand and silence. Emma scanned the horizon. Wind hissed through the ruins. The depot lay ahead, half buried in the earth, a series of concrete tunnels that once housed oil machinery, now repurposed into something darker. Cole's voice came over the comm. "Team Alpha, move. Beta, perimeter sweep. Ghost, you're with me." Emma followed, moving like a shadow, rifle close, heartbeat steady. Inside the tunnels, it was cooler. The air smelled of dust and metal. Her flashlight beam cut through the dark, illuminating crates stamped with faded American markings. She crouched, brushing her gloved fingers across the side. Property of U.S. Army, prototype guidance systems. Cole exhaled. "You were right, someone been raiding our archives." Someone with clearance, she said. Her voice echoed down the tunnel, swallowed by stone. Ramos's voice crackled through the headset. Command, this is Alpha 3, getting strong signal interference, possible jamming. Cole frowned. Copy, stay on short range. Ghost, let's pull the drive in. He stopped mid-sentence. A faint click echoed from the shadows ahead. Emma's instinct screamed, down. The explosion ripped through the tunnel, concussive, brutal. Dust and debris swallowed the air. She hit the ground hard, her helmet slamming into concrete. Her ears rang, vision blurred. Cole's voice was distant, shouting orders through static. Ambush, defensive positions. Shapes moved in the smoke. Muzzle flashes, shouts in a language half familiar. Bullets sliced the air. Emma rolled behind a pillar, returning fire in short, precise bursts. Her right hand shook violently, forcing her to use both to stabilize the rifle. She saw Ramos fall, hit in the shoulder. Kira dragged him back behind cover, shouting for a medic who wasn't there. Contact left, Dane roared. His rifle barked in rhythm. Emma's comms hissed. They were waiting for us, she said between breaths. Cole's voice came back, raw but steady. Fall back to extraction point. We're compromised. Negative, she replied. They'll pick us off in the open. He hesitated, then suggestions. She scanned the structure, old vents above the tunnel entrance. Diversion through the maintenance shafts. I'll draw fire. Not an option, Cole said sharply. Wasn't a request. She moved before he could argue, sprinting toward the side corridor. Bullets ricocheted off concrete as she dove into cover, laying suppressive fire. Her pulse pounded in her ears, the world narrowing to sound, breath, and movement. Kira and Dane took the opening, dragging Ramos toward the exit. Cole covered their flank, precise, efficient, terrifyingly composed. Emma climbed through the maintenance shaft, crawling through the dust, the metal vibrating from distant gunfire. Halfway through, her headset crackled. Ghost, Cole said. They're falling back, you need to move. Copy, she whispered. Then a new voice, cold, calm, familiar. Don't move, ma'am. She froze. The voice came from behind her. Voss. He was crouched at the other end of the shaft, rifle raised. His visor reflected her flashlight beam like a mirror. Put it down, he said. Emma's pulse slowed. What are you doing? Finishing the job, he said simply. You weren't supposed to walk out of Bennying alive. Command wanted the leak buried, not solved. Her stomach turned to ice. You're one of Lang. Lang, Voss chuckled. Lang, a middleman. I work for the people who pay him. Private contractors, she murmured. The same network that built the new unit. He smiled faintly. Smart, shame you can't sell it. Her mind raced. The tunnel echoed with distant shouts, Cole's voice calling her name, unaware of the betrayal behind him. You'll kill them too, she said. Collateral, Voss said coldly. Lang gets his data, I get paid, you get forgotten again. Her right hand twitched uncontrollably now. She gritted her teeth, forcing her breathing steady. You shouldn't have come back, Ghost One. Neither should you, she whispered. Then she flicked off her flashlight. Darkness swallowed them both. Voss cursed softly, sweeping his rifle. Don't. Emma moved like shadow, using sound, instinct, memory. A sharp noise to her right, a thrown shell casing. His rifle swung. That's when she struck, lunging low, slamming into him. The shaft rang with the impact. The rifle went off, a flash, a roar, heat against her shoulder. Pain exploded, but she didn't stop. Her training took over, controlled chaos, elbow, strike, twist. She wrenched the rifle, reversed it, fired once. The shot echoed through the shaft like thunder. Silence. Her hands shook violently as she pushed Voss's body aside. The metallic smell of blood mixed with dust. She crawled out the other end, gasping, vision tunneling. Cole found her seconds later. Emma, you're hit. Just a graze, she said through clenched teeth. He looked past her, saw the blood trail leading back into the shaft. Voss. Dead, she said flatly. Cole's jaw tightened. I told Lang we couldn't trust his picks. She stared at him. He planted him. He didn't deny it. He wanted insurance. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Insurance or silence. Does it matter now? He said bitterly. We need to move. They linked up with the others, Kira pale but unhurt, Dane limping, Ramos barely conscious. The extraction zone was a mile east, beyond a ridge. The sun was bleeding into the horizon by the time they reached the chopper. Dust swirled in red light as the pilot yelled, "Move, move." Cole shoved the team inside, covering their retreat. Emma turned once, looking back at the ruins. Smoke rose in thin black fingers from the tunnels. Somewhere down there, the truth still burned, half found, half lost. The helicopter lifted. Inside, the air was thick with exhaustion. Kira clutched Ramos's hand. Dane sat in silence, staring at his boots. Cole leaned across from Emma. We got the drives. Lang will get his data. She didn't respond. He studied her for a long moment. What are you thinking? She finally looked at him. That we keep killing the same ghosts. He frowned. They rebuild them, rename them, reassign them, she said softly. But it's always the same sickness. Power without accountability. Orders without conscience. Cole's jaw flexed. You think we can stop it? Her trembling hand rested on her knee. No, but maybe we can slow it down. Outside, the desert fell away. A landscape of scars bathed in dying light. Cole leaned back, closing his eyes. Lang, going to bury this, he said. Call it success. Give medals to men who don't exist. Emma nodded faintly. Then we make sure someone remembers the truth. He opened one eye. You planning to haunt him? She gave a small, tired smile. Ghosts do that best. The helicopter banked west, flying toward the border. The horizon glowed, not with victory, but with the fragile, flickering light of people trying to live with what they've done. Down below, the wind erased their footprints in the sand. And somewhere in an office far away, Director Lang watched the mission feed, expression unreadable. He turned to his aide. Prepare debrief and mark Operative Mitchell for containment. Sorry. Lang's tone was cold. No one stays a ghost forever. In the chopper, Emma's eyes stayed fixed on the fatting desert. Her wound throbbed, her arm trembled uncontrollably now, but her heart was still steady. She whispered to herself, a vow, a memory, a warning. They keep trying to write the same story, she murmured, but I'm still holding the pen. Cole looked at her, quietly proud, quietly afraid. He knew what she meant. This wasn't the end. It was the reckoning before it. Why do ghosts always come back? That question haunted Director Lang as he stood in the observation room, watching the desert footage play on repeat. Emma Mitchell's face flickered on the monitor, calm, dirt-streaked, bleeding, yet unbroken. The kind of calm you only earn after walking through hell and refusing to die in it. He sipped his coffee, though it had long gone cold. Containment, he muttered. The word echoed in the sterile air. Behind him, a young analyst hesitated. Sir, if I may, she completed the mission. Neutralized the rogue cell, recovered the data. She deserves. Lang turned slowly. Deserves? His voice was soft, too soft. Operatives don't deserve, they obey. The analyst swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Lang looked back at the monitor. No one survives being useful forever. He shut the screen off. The helicopter touched down at the forward outpost near the Turkish border. The moment the skids hit ground, Emma felt the air shift, that quiet, unnatural tension that only comes when the threat isn't gone, just waiting behind protocol. Cole helped her down. Med team's ready, they'll patch you up. She nodded, cradling her right arm against her chest. The tremor hadn't stopped since the shaft fight with Voss. It wasn't pain now, It was something deeper, cellular, as if the shaking was trying to remind her she was still alive. The med tent was bright, sterile, filled with the smell of iodine and exhaustion. As the medic worked, Emma kept her eyes on the tent flap. She could feel eyes on her, watching, measuring. Cole entered, helmet off, sweat streaking his face. Lang, requesting debrief over encrypted line. Emma's jaw tightened. Of course he is. He'll spin it, Cole said. He always does. She gave a tired smile. Then maybe it's time someone spun back. The medic looked between them nervously, then excused himself. Cole sat beside her cot, lowering his voice. You're not planning to play this quiet, are you? Not anymore. He leaned forward. Emma, they'll bury you again, or worse. She looked at him. They already did, I just keep crawling out. Cole shook his head. You don't have to keep doing this alone. Her eyes softened. Don't make promises you can't keep. He started to reply, but the comm tech poked in. Colonel Cole, Director Lang on secure feed. Cole sighed, stood, and left. Emma waited 5 seconds, then followed. The command center was dim, screens flickering like dying stars. Lang's face filled the main monitor, crisp suit, measured expression, eyes colder than the steel walls around them. Operative Mitchell, he said, good work, you've earned a brief reprieve. She didn't salute. Is that what you call being hunted by your own? His lips curved. Collateral discipline, you've always struggled with authority. I struggle with hypocrisy, she said. Cole cut in. Director, with respect, Voss was your man, you put a traitor on my team. Why? Lang sighed. Every operation needs deniability. I needed to ensure that if you two went off script again, there'd be balance. Emma's fists clenched. You sent a killer to monitor us. A professional, Lang corrected, and apparently not professional enough. Her voice dropped to a low, dangerous calm. You used 731 as bait 3 years ago. You used us again now. What are you really protecting? Lang's gaze sharpened. National security, Mitchell. The kind that keeps you and every other broken idealist in this room from understanding the full picture. Cole stepped forward. You killed good soldiers for your picture. Lang's voice hardened. You think you're heroes because you bled for a cause. The cause is whatever survives history. Everything else is sentiment. Emma's tremor worsened, but her tone stayed level. You're confusing survival with victory. Lang chuckled, spoken like a ghost. You don't belong to this world anymore, Mitchell. You belong to myth, and myths are useful until they start talking. The screen went black. Cole exhaled. That's it, he's going to shut us down permanently. Emma stared at the empty monitor. Not if we talk louder first. He frowned, meaning. She turned toward him, eyes cold and clear. The data drives. Voss wasn't after them for the weapons intel. He wanted the comm logs. They prove Lang's contracts, backroom deals, shadow ops, falsified casualties. If those go public. Cole shook his head. Emma, that's treason. She met his gaze. So was what he did to us. Night fell hard over the outpost. The desert air turned cold, sharp enough to taste. Emma sat alone outside the hangar, the drive in her hand glinting faintly under moonlight. Cole approached quietly. You're really going to do it? She looked up. If I don't, who will? He knelt beside her. You release that data, they'll brand you a traitor. There'll be nowhere left to run. There never was. He studied her face, tired, scarred, beautiful in its defiance. You remind me of who we used to be, he said softly. She smiled faintly. Then remember me for that. Cole sighed, stood, and handed her a small transmitter. Satellite link, secure frequency. You'll have 2 minutes before they trace you. She took it. Their hands brushed, a fleeting human contact between two ghosts. Then she was gone. The comms tower loomed against the sky, humming faintly with power. Emma climbed the maintenance ladder, her wounded arm screaming with each rung. The night wind whipped at her hair, carrying the sand's bitter breath. At the top, she connected the drive, initiated the uplink. The progress bar crawled across the small screen. 30 seconds. She whispered under her breath, for them. Images flickered on the display, her fallen team, mission logs, classified reports, satellite footage of Black Ops operations buried under innocuous headlines. The kind of truth no one ever gets to see. 50%. A noise below, boots on gravel. Her heart kicked, she crouched low. Cole's voice called softly, "Emma, it's me." She relaxed slightly as he climbed up, breath visible in the cold air. "You didn't have to follow," she said. "You didn't have to go alone," he replied. 90%. Then a flash of red warning, signal detected. Emma's eyes widened. They found us. "Cut the upload," Cole ordered. She shook her head, too late. Spotlights flared from the far ridge. Drones. Then gunfire, short, sharp bursts tearing into the tower supports. Cole drew his weapon. "Move." They descended fast, metal groaning under fire. Bullets pinged off the rails. One struck near Emma's shoulder, splintering the ladder. She slipped, her trembling hand barely catching the rung. "Emma." "I'm fine," she hissed. "Keep moving." They hit the ground running. The outpost was chaos, alarms blaring, soldiers scattering, searchlights sweeping the dunes. Cole grabbed her wrist. "This way." They dove behind a supply truck. Overhead, a drone passed, its sensor lights sweeping like an eye. Emma gasped, clutching the drive. "Upload finished." Cole stared. "You got it out." She nodded. "Public relay, untraceable server. Every file Lang buried is in the open now." His expression shifted. Awe, fear, something in between. "You just declared war on the machine." She smiled faintly. Someone had to pull the trigger. The sound of approaching engines cut through the air. Armed vehicles, Lang's retrieval unit. Cole looked toward the ridge. "We can't outrun them." Emma's gaze was calm. "Then we make sure they can't find us." She pointed toward the fuel depot. "Set a charge, make it loud." Cole hesitated. "Emma." She met his eyes. "Trust me." He nodded once and ran. Emma stayed low, crawling behind the generator stacks. The tremor in her right hand was uncontrollable now. She could barely keep her grip on the weapon, but her mind sharp, focused. She thought of Fort Benning, the laughter, the mockery, the way they'd all gone pale when they saw the tattoo. She thought of Davis, Voss, the ghosts of 731. And then she thought of Lance, Jake, the recruits who now trained with more respect than arrogance, the ones who learned because of her silence. The sound of gunfire snapped her back. Cole returned, breath ragged, charges set. She looked at him one last time. "You still believe in ghosts?" He managed a half smile. "Always did." She triggered the detonator. The explosion tore through the desert, a bloom of fire and sand rising into the night. The shockwave knocked them both flat, heat rolling over them in waves. When the dust settled, the outpost was burning, data wiped, trackers destroyed, comms silent. Cole turned to her. "You okay?" She coughed, eyes watering. "Define okay." He laughed, a rough, broken sound that almost felt like relief. Overhead, the sky began to glow with the first hint of dawn. Days later, news networks would erupt, leaked files, hidden wars, secret programs, names of the dead finally acknowledged, Congress scrambling for deniability. No one would know who released it. The name Emma Mitchell would stay erased. But in the quiet corners of bases around the world, her story would spread, whispered between recruits, retold in fragments. About a woman who shook when she fired but never missed. A soldier who disobeyed orders to protect what was right. A ghost who bled for truth and disappeared before anyone could thank her. Months passed. Somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, far from deserts and orders, a small cabin sat tucked between pines. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney. Inside, Emma poured coffee into 2 mugs, one for herself, one left untouched on the table. The arm still trembled, but less now. Healing was slow. Ghosts healed differently. A knock came at the door. She opened it to find Cole standing there, civilian clothes, duffel over his shoulder. He smiled faintly. "Heard you were haunting the mountains." "Depends who's asking," she said. "An old friend," he replied, "with no rank and nowhere to go." She stepped aside. "Then you found the right place." He entered. They sat by the fire. For a while neither spoke. The silence wasn't heavy anymore, just familiar. Finally he said, "You changed things." She shook her head. "The truth did." He studied her. "And you?" She smiled faintly, still trembling, still standing. He chuckled softly. "That's enough." Outside, snow began to fall, slow, quiet, relentless. The world was still turning, still fighting, still forgetting. But for once, Emma felt peace, however temporary. She looked into the fire, eyes reflecting its glow. "You know what I've learned, Cole." "What's that?" "That dignity doesn't speak," she said softly. "It simply acts." He nodded, understanding. They sat in silence as the flames danced. 2 ghosts who refused to vanish, a proof that even in the darkest corners of war, humanity can still find its voice in the quiet between heartbeats. And somewhere far away, a young recruit at Fort Benning whispered her name before a morning run, not in mockery, but in respect. Because legends aren't made by those who shout the loudest. They're made by those who keep going, even when their hands still shake.